Hi again everyone, I'm Ollie Matthews. This is the Narcissistic Resistance, and this resistance video is sponsored by contribution from Peggy. And Peggy's written in before and she sent in audio files before. So this is an audio file. Let's hear her story.
Hi Ollie, it's Peggy. You've done quite a few videos for me between my late husband's narcissistic relatives and my own family. And one thing I've learned is that you're always right. In my situations anyway. I mean, I'm amazed. So it's really made me value your opinion. I have a very short voicemail. I know the listeners like hearing those. I like hearing them myself. But this one is a couple of years old. Mike was still living, and this voicemail was left by my mother to Mike. Now, he wouldn't talk to her, and I'm glad he didn't answer the phone. But when she changed her will and left me out, I was crying, and not over any kind of money or property, but I kind of had it in my mind, if you love your child, you want to leave them something. And to be just so brutally cut off like that, I think was my first real knowledge that she didn't love me and probably never had. And I'm glad I kept all these voicemails, and you have some of them of my brother Wes. The funniest one, I guess, was where he just kept calling repeatedly, trying to make me call Mom and apologize for a note I had sent her that was really very nice. They twisted it around into something that wasn't nice. So if any of the listeners want to hear that one, I can't recall the name of it, but just leave a message for me in the comments and I'll search it out and find it. Because, it gets to where it's good, for laughs, and Ollie was really funny in that particular video. But
the easiest way for you to find it is just to search my email address, because I'm pretty sure I've always emailed to you. I always email the links back. So every video, if I've made a video for you in the past, just run my name in my email address in your search, in your email search, and it'll send you everything I've sent you. It'll show you everything I've ever sent you. So those of you who don't know Peggy, I've made quite a few videos for her. Her husband Mike suffered from cancer of pancreatic, I believe it was. Ended up passing away on the bathroom floor in the worst way possible. She has a long history of narcissism with her mother and her brother, who's basically her mother's caretaker. So that's where we're at now.
this one I'm going to play, like I said, was from my mother to my late husband. And it was about him not contacting his family. Okay, this message was left a little over a year before Mike died. He lived 4 years with liver cancer. They knew he was terminal. They don't care. Nobody really cared. But what this also tells me is that there was some conversation about us going on behind our backs. It probably still is mine, and I'm just, some of it I do hear bits and pieces, and I'll share that too, but she's going to mention the name Robbie. That's Mike's youngest brother. And his parents moved from this town to a town about 50, maybe almost an hour away, to accommodate him financially to help him afford a place he wanted. And I don't know what it is about these youngest brothers that parents are willing to jump through hoops to give them what they want, but I'd love to know that too.
The reason they latch on to the youngest is because they're the ones that are going to be around the longest. Percentage-wise, they have the best, because they're the youngest. They're the ones who can take care of them the longest. That's why. It's the afterlife. It's who can I get the most out of? Well, you're going to get the most out of the youngest sibling, not the oldest. And especially since especially now that Mike has passed on.
Now, our families had kind of always known each other. My parents both went to school with Mike's father. His mother was from Germany. His father met her when he was in the service and brought her back. So they got to know her a little better. And Mike really didn't want to go over there anymore. Even before he started to feel bad, his sister, there's 3 boys and the 1 sister, so there were 4 of them altogether. But his sister pulled a stunt behind his back that involved his ex-wife. It's long and convoluted and doesn't really matter what the stunt was, but she left evidence of it in the form of a letter that he found accidentally when he was staying with their mother on her schedule, on the sister's schedule, at a nursing home where she was recuperating from a car accident. She was 85 years old and survived a broken neck. But what his sister had done was disrespectful. It was something he totally, point blank, asked her not to do. And she did it. And he was so hurt. And then she tried to keep it secret. Pulled his daughter in on it even.
If she really wanted to keep it a secret, she never would have put it in a letter. She wanted him to know. Whether it was, consciously or subconsciously, she wanted him to know. Why did she put it in the letter? Come on. They can't help themselves. It's part of the supply, Peggy. It's part of the game. It's part of the manipulation. It's all a gaslight. You call her on it, she denies it, and the game you can play with that manipulation. My father was a master at that, the master of the coincidence, or I wasn't that evil. It wasn't. Oh, yes, it was. Don't fool yourself that he just happenstancely found it. Maybe that day it wasn't meant to be found at the time he found it, but it was meant to be found eventually. It was absolutely meant to be. They really keep no secret. They can't help themselves. They want you to know their deception. They want you to know what they're getting away with. Might have been a coincidence that he found it, but it sure as shit was not on purpose. It was definitely purposeful. She wrote it in the letter for a reason, to be found. Or it was written in a letter for it to be found, whether it was by her or the mother who wrote it, one way or the other. Somebody wanted him to know.
So that was a double whammy. But he called me in the middle of the night for me to read the letter, or to read it to me, and then the next day it was my turn to stay with the lady at the hospital or nursing home. I went through the notebook and found it myself, and if I'd had any brains at all about what was going on, I would have asked the nurse, can you make me a copy of this? But, who cares? It's over, it's done, he's dead. But he was very...
You should care. Because it was done to hurt him. They wanted him to see that eventually, whether it was that day or sometime down the future. They wanted to stab the knife. They wanted to jam the knife in and twist it. That's what the narcissist does. That's how they get their supply.
And that was the reason he didn't really want to go so much. But he did like to talk to him on the phone. But them being old, 2 minutes with the 2 of them was about all he could get. They just didn't want to talk on the phone. They wanted him to come over there, and then his dad would call all the siblings and bring them all over and have a big party, and Mike didn't want that. He wanted to visit with them one-on-one, especially with his mom. And I remember one really good visit that he talked about a long time. They were all reminiscing about when they lived at a certain place and the people they knew. And I'm from the same area, so I knew what they were talking about and could add into it. But he just didn't want to do that anymore after that. And during his illness, I was starting to send joint.
Yeah, you didn't, because it's meant to break him. That's a backbreaker. That's the whole point of putting it in a letter for him to find eventually. It's having its desired effect.
Private messages through Facebook, and I would give the doctor's latest report along with the blood work and the numbers, the lab numbers, and what it meant. And they all saw it. You could see we would have their names that they'd seen it. But only one person would make a comment, and that was the youngest brother, Robbie, and it was the same comment over and over and over. He'd just say, "Thanks for the update." So finally Mike said, "Don't tell them anything else going on with me. I don't want them to know. They don't give a fuck about me, and I'm done telling them anything." He said, "Where are they? They expect me to go driving over there, and they don't even call here." I mean, he was hurt. It's not like he was sitting back and didn't notice, and I didn't point any of it out. I was trying to, kind of hoping he didn't know.
Because they were trying to hurt him, Peggy. I mean, even though Mike's gone, and you cared for him deeply, you took care of him to the end. So this still matters. This still matters for you. So you always remember who the fuck these people are, how fucking evil they were, and how they went out of their way to hurt him.
Notice, but of course he did. Even his daughter, and I realize she's busy with her own life. She's in her mid-30s and had her first child 4 years ago. And we weren't even invited to the child's birthday parties. As a matter of fact, we were pretty much left out of its first year of life as a little girl. And a lot of that had to do with her mother, who is another real piece of work. But, if my father was terminal and I knew it, and my baby was going to have a birthday party, I think I would just have to say, "Dad and his wife are invited to this party. Anybody that doesn't like it, keep your fat ass at home, because Dad and Peggy are coming." But she didn't do that. Mom got her way. She was, had the big birthday party with all the relatives. And then we were relegated to a visit the day after so we could take our present. And my heart hurt for him when those things would happen.
You didn't know when to walk away. They didn't know they were, including his own daughter, using him as some kind of emotional douchebag. Emotional punching bag, the typical scale. Let's just keep kicking this guy and see how much abuse he can take, even as he's dying.
Because he knew that he was considered the lesser of the two parents, even though he was the more sane one, the one who literally raised her when her mother would run off, 3 or 4 times during the marriage, and then finally did divorcing, which was a godsend. I kind of had a little bit of a hard time with his daughter there at first. I didn't want to come out and actually have to say the words. I mean, I said he was terminal. I said there's no fixing this. But I don't know how much of it she didn't want to understand or if she just didn't. So finally I wrote to her husband sometime during that last year of Mike's life and said, you all do understand this is terminal, don't you? So that pulled her in. It really lit a fire under her, and she started coming at first once a week, but I didn't think she could keep that up. That's she had a child and a job, and but she tried to do as much as she could, and she was calling more, and I did that for his sake, not hers. But she's going around now, expressing regret that she didn't see him more. Well, I'm sorry, I can't help that. I did what I could. But like I said, it was for him. But
well, now she's feeling the adult effects of parental alienation, I guess. She wasted this time that she could have been spending with her dad that she didn't. Is she going to fixate the blame put the blame where it belongs? On her mother? Probably not. Probably not. And you probably trying to focus her on there is just going to make you look bitter at this point anyway. There's like, oh, there's Peggy being Peggy again. I'm sure. Hopefully, maybe she'll come to you and ask you, but you can't give her any type of this advice unsolicited, Peggy. Because otherwise they just turn it around as you're the problem. Which is so easy to do because obviously Mike's the scapegoat in the family. So you marry a black sheep scapegoat, you become a scapegoat black sheep by proxy. Just by supporting him as you did.
Would have benefited if she had really listened to me. So let me go ahead and play this and then see if there's anything else to say. But this is my mother talking to Mike about his family. February 18th, 2015.
First message. Mike, I'm wondering how you feel. And I'm going to tell you that we have talked with Robbie, and they don't know what's wrong if you don't talk with them. And your mother's getting old. It would be nice if you could give her a call. I remember how much you used to think of her. If it's okay with Peggy, that's okay. And if it's not, it's your mother. And you should do what you want to do.
The boundary that's crossed here for your mother to talk to him about his mother. I mean, wow.
So, I hope you feel good today.
So, anybody got any ideas what the fuck that was about? Other than we were being talked about for I don't know what reason.
Here's what I think a big part of it is about, Peggy. It's not really about him. It's about you. Okay, because the narcissist always needs to blame someone else as well. When they can't get what they want out of you, okay, if you have a spouse, they're the ones going to get the blame. Oh, well, I'm sure Mike's so-and-so's brainwashing you. That works both ways. Can't be me that Peggy's trying to avoid. Must be ideas Mike's putting in her head. All right, so with that in mind, if Mike's not going to talk to his mother, then you're going to get the idea to not talk to her. It's about her and you, not about him. He's merely a pawn. He needs to be gaslighted and broken. No, you need to go talk to your mother and do what she says so Peggy will do what the fuck I say. Do you get it, Peggy? Do you get it? It's all a manipulation. Everything has a self-serving motive with these people. Everything. You just got to get down to like, what's this bitch really after here? What's her real motivation? What is she really at? It's not about him and his mother. It's about you and her. And you not following his lead or getting any fucking bright ideas to do what he's doing. And vice versa. And if she can gaslight a terminally ill man in the process and do it, then all more power to her in her mind. All the more narc supply.
And if it's okay with Peggy, I mean, they all have lived under some delusion that I controlled him. I don't know where that really came from, except when I married him, his ex-wife had him so beaten down, she would say jump, he'd say how high. And I knew them years ago. I've known Mike since probably junior high, but we didn't express any interest in each other. I knew his sister. We just waited for him to leave so we could go in his room and get his Beatle records and record player. But yeah, I mean, he was a really laid-back, mellow kind of guy who he said he didn't like to get angry, that he didn't like the way it felt. And I saw him angry once, and it wasn't at me, but it even scared me a little bit because I thought he was more out of control than he was. He just got really loud. So it made quite an impression on people if they did see him angry. But at some point he learned not to show it, that it was wrong to be angry. I went to see his father almost a year after Mike was gone. I thought, it'd be good for both of us. His father was widowed. He's got eye problems and he can't drive, and he's sitting there every day, all day long. And then he makes the kids run for him all weekend doing errands because he won't ride the little community bus. He could ride it for $1, but he won't do it. So I'm glad he lives over there. But when I was there visiting with him, he wanted to know, was I still going to the synagogue, basically. He had come up to Mike. Well, he'd done this many times. Would come up and ask, are you all going to church anywhere? And, we weren't, usually. Or Mike wasn't, even if I was. And he would start to chastise Mike like he was a child. I mean, if you didn't go to church, you were going to hell. If you didn't believe Jesus was the Messiah, you were going to hell. So you couldn't win no matter what you did. And to go to Judaism to him was just about the worst thing that we could do. So I decided to investigate it. And I went for almost a year by myself. I never even invited him because I didn't want him to feel pushed. His ex-wife pushed him so much, and I didn't. And I think it made him trust me enough that when he didn't want to do something, he'd just say, I don't want to do it. So that's kind of the relationship we had. We left each other alone on things like that. If one wanted to do something and the other didn't, then go. That was fine. No big deal. And we never had a serious fight in the 18 years we were married. And I'm kind of proud of that, but I do feel like half of me is gone now. So you pay a price when you love somebody that much and you get that close to them. It's when they're gone, you're there, but only half of you. And it's taken me a really long time to get through this. But his father, on that visit that I made to his father, he said, I need to ask you something. I don't understand how anybody can take a step backwards into Judaism. And I guess my eyes must have opened pretty wide, and I said, well, wasn't Jesus a Jew? He said, no, he was the first Christian. I managed to not laugh while I was there, but I just kept thinking, shit. I got nothing for this. How do you come back with